I've always felt different, and I always knew that I was different and unique. And this was shocking to a lot of people because throughout my life, people couldn't box me the way they wanted to. People couldn't use me the way they wanted to. People couldn't abuse me the way they wanted to. And people couldn't simply define me the way they wanted to. And when I look back now, I'm very thankful to have been different. There's a beauty in being different in the society that we live in. A lot of us really chase the normalcy of life. We chase the sensation of being the golden child, especially when you're young. We chase subconsciously and emotionally the feeling of being chosen, and we chase the idea of being seen, being loved, being respected, and all of those things, which is a beautiful thing. But when you really learn how being different is actually your unique selling point, if I may say so, it enhances you and it teaches you how to really embrace your identity in society that tries to write a script for your normalcy and for your being, you know. And just a little bit about myself. I need to introduce myself again. I've come very far, and basically I am a lover of fashion. I'm a lover of film. I come from a background of storytelling. I come from a background of music. My father was a jazz musician, and my mother loved poetry. But throughout that, society, obviously, there needed to be costs, and there needed to be a way of living. So all these aspects of myself became a pillar of me learning about myself. At the same time, it also became a bridge into how do you succeed in society? What is considered successful? I used to really admire my father for using music, and because his father was also a musician. And when you realize how much a black man has suffered in South Africa, you realize that throughout the apartheid, his father still decided to be a jazz musician, and he got beaten heavily for it. And he really was persecuted because he was not the normal black person, or the black individual man that was forced to do mining or forced to do something that was based on white supremacy. And this is why I enjoy being different, because when I hold on to how my family grew up, there's a way of how they also really brought in resiliency for being different in their careers, being different in their livelihoods, and being different in general. It's not to say that these men were perfect, because what I learned over the years was, because of so much of the oppression and so much of the alienation and discrimination of not being categorized or controlled or oppressed into a certain position, they lashed it out on us. I do believe that my grandfather was very, very abusive to my father, which therefore he also became emotionally and psychologically abusive to me, because there was a form of trauma that gets passed down that is really unspoken of, and when you are a child that is definitely different, and you hold different gifts as well. I love all my gifts, and I'm very creative. It becomes a threat because you realize what you went through. And I think when I think about this, I realize that I was a really intense mirror for my father, but from the female side, from the daughter relationship, the father and daughter relationship, which is really, those who know, it's very, very precious, but very intense, because it's just like the relationship with the mother and son. You know, it really, over time, you want the best for your kid, but you yourself are not really a good version or a good example for your kid. And so I find this very interesting, because there was always a love hate relationship with my father, but there was such a love for who he was, choosing to still use music as an activist movement and moment. I think what really resonated for me growing up was how the different people came into my home, after school, and how homework was not a topic of discussion at home. Basically, my father never cared about me doing homework. He cared about me understanding music, understanding emotions, understanding the rhythm of how the keynotes are being played within the piano. And every day after school, when I was 8 or 9, the focus was for me to play like Alicia Keys. That was his drill, and he wanted me to really understand do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and practice that every single day. And it frustrated me because I also wanted to do dancing. I had a different kind of creativity that he couldn't understand. And so, this feeling of passing down something that your father did to your next person, that was happening, and I couldn't understand why, what is he doing? And I came into my teenage stages where I realized that, what, I'm going to retaliate. This is not me. I'm not Alicia Keys. I'm not a piano person, and I will not play the piano because every single day I would hear my father, the whole building would hear my father play piano. And the very things that I really miss right now are the very things that irritated me back then. Waking up to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and constantly him playing classical jazz, classical music, or classical piano. I basically miss that. And I also basically understand that that was part of why I became so different in this world, is because those were systems that were so different to what everybody goes to learn and goes to see and has the experience of having in their daily life and daily home. And why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because sometimes when we now step out from our homes and when we step out from how we grew up, we now have to face the reality of society. And so that means, society's already been structured a certain way, it's already been built for people and for a certain type of people. And if you do not fit in according to that structure, you really stand out like a sore thumb. And what I've also noticed is society is very, very afraid of people who are unique, people who are different, because they do not understand how to box them in, how to communicate with them, how to partner up and create a connection with them. People are very fixated, especially within the society. They're very fixated on how to manage and control certain people, race, you name it. And it's always been a struggle within history. And you know how history has played out in certain countries where there's always a need to oppress, depress, suppress, recess financially, emotionally, socially. There's always a need to digress, digest, infest as well. And for me, this was my perception of reality, and it made me think differently. It made me see the world differently. Over time, when I also had the opportunity to move to Germany, that also opened a different perspective of how certain societies have been trained to, think liberally, where other countries are trained to think in survival tactics. And this was very interesting because, on the one side, we categorize again Germany and we categorize European countries as the first world countries. But behind all of this categorization of you're the first, you're the second, you're the third, that within itself is again creating an identity of no, you're great, you're medium, you're almost there, and you've got work to do. However, the people who are in the first world country are the very same people who extract resources from the third world country. So let's talk about how that within itself is the same structure within families. If you're not the golden child, you are the child that's different. But what if that different child makes the experience of the family really unique? Something to celebrate instead of to oppress and alienate and to steal from, or you know, I really find this really interesting because most times we lose out on the opportunity of learning from different people simply because how we grew up, simply because what we were taught, simply because of what we think about them, and simply because we are afraid of them. And that is what I've seen in society. When people cannot categorize you, people start getting afraid of you. And if you're not the normal white person or the normal black person, there's a fear to try and control you and monitor you and what is she about to do, what is she going to do next. And that's exactly what I've experienced, because there's been a need to watch out for different people, unique people, and at the same time copy them, steal from them, but also ridicule them and isolate them and oppress them. And that is the same within the different races. If you really look at it, there's beauty in Africa, and there's beauty in different African countries, and there's also beauty in a different way of life in living, within Africa and within being African as well. So I'm just mentioning this because I also saw that being or living with my own father, being an African father who's not the normal father that goes to work or works for the white man, or is scheduled around the clock of westernized living standards. A man who basically decided that music is his passion, music is how he will feed us, and then music is also how he will connect with many people around the world. One thing that I loved and one thing that I've taken from that relationship and why it's made me so different is throughout all of that, my father has been able to travel amongst different countries with his with his music skill. He has been able to play with different bands, and in those bands that used to come into my home, they were of different races. So he not only did he, get out of the gender norm, he also opened me to understand different people, and that at the end of the day, no matter what skin color and gender and race that they are, they both all had a passion for this one thing called music. And that is exactly why I love being different so much, because the difference is it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what do we have in common, even through our differences. That is more powerful than just labeling someone different and then closing that archive and making sure that nobody knows who they are, and let's hide and delete her and erase her, and let's not make people know. And that's why society suffers the way it does, because the difference of all these things is the very same solution that can really bring our joy and happiness in how we connect with each other. So, what are your thoughts about being different? Have you also felt different growing up? Um, I really think this is a great topic to have because in this day and age, it's a beauty. It's really a great opportunity to be different, but those who know it also felt like a curse because once upon a time, your identity and your autonomy was questioned by the very same people, places that you loved. And let's have a conversation about this. Also, if this resonated with you, don't forget to like and share and subscribe. And let's continue having these conversations about how we build the confidence of being different in our identities. And I'll chat to you soon. Bye.